I don't know about you, but I would say if someone does something with big focus, without getting distracted, for a couple of hours, let's say maybe about 3.3 hours, I would say that person is pretty immersed in what they're doing. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've had longer game sessions than that. 3.3 hours is nothing, and yeah, I know, I would have played more of this game, in fact, if I hadn't reached the end of the content in it. And also, don't worry, I'm not gonna tell you about how Darkwood is so immersive because it has minimal UI, you can pick up objects, and it has good sound design. I mean, it has all those things, but that's the obvious stuff. I want to talk about something I think most people don't intuitively associate with immersion in video games that is actually really important to me, because what I did in a lot of those 3.3 hours, it looked something like this. Gap over the door that... Wait. Where'd the crate go? What? Can I do that with myself, please? Yeah, what I'm trying to do here is prop fly up to the tower. You can actually break the windows in there, and then I was hoping to, like, clamber up in there. Couldn't quite get it to work. I don't know if prop flying is possible in this game or not. It might be, and I just didn't quite get it right. I'm not actually a speedrunner or anything, despite what this might look like. I just like breaking games. Or rather, playing them my way. You see, despite me doing things like this, I wouldn't say I actually broke the game. And that's not just because, in this case, the prop flying didn't work. I actually found a couple of ways where I could do things in this game that I'm not sure were ever explicitly intended. Some of them I think kind of were, or at least the devs must have been aware that people would do this. But the real thing is that at no point did it feel like the game came to a halt. Which to me is what breaking a game implies. I know people use it also a little more vaguely to refer to using exploit in a game, but even that was not really the case here. At least not as far as I'm concerned. Really, the only thing to do in Gloomwood is to progress through it, get further, see more of the levels, right? And that's exactly what I did the whole time. And yeah, I did it in maybe some unconventional ways. I did it in some ways that exploit the fact that this is a video game and not a reality. And probably in some ways that some people might moan at and say that I'm not playing the game properly. But I mean, it's a single-player game. I don't care. You know, I'm having fun. So what? The important point here is that if a game isn't actually so focused on how exactly the player does things, or isn't very fine-grained in its actual mandatory objectives, let's say, there is actually a lot less of a way for the game to truly break. Me skipping apparently almost an entire level didn't really break the game. Yeah, the other thing I was hoping for first was actually trying to get the barrel to go through the door and knock away the other shit that's there. Yeah, it does. Can we use that somehow? Where? Ha! Ah! Ha ha! We're making it. See? Wasn't so bad. I may or may not have skipped finding a certain weapon in the game. I kept finding ammo for it, didn't find it, but that's on me. I mean, it's a fine line to walk, but when you use physics glitches to open a door that's supposed to be locked from the other side, and even has a note next to it indicating that you're supposed to do a whole bunch of other things and go take a totally different route, I feel like, yeah, I mean, I am being a little cheeky here. But that also means that I don't actually expect the game to entirely work in my favor, or rather, I'm not expecting that I am gonna be at the best odds. But then that just makes the challenge more enticing. I managed to get all the way to the end of the content in the game, managed to trigger a message from the devs saying you've reached the end of the content. Now wait for more. This game is currently in early access, right? I'd say I beat the game fair and square. I did the one thing that the devs intended people to do. I mean, definitely, truly, absolutely intended. And I'm sure they had a lot of ideas about how players may or may not tackle a lot of the problems in the game, but I don't think they ever had a super clear idea about the one path people were supposed to take. I mean, yeah, if you make your game in a way where you expect players to hit very specific triggers in a very specific order, and your entire game depends on that happening, the game might actually break by doing things like that. However, I posit that most games out there that do a lot of that kind of stuff don't actually have to do that. And I'm not gonna call it bad design if you do that. There are many different kinds of games and reasons to play games. And, you know, sometimes you just want basically an interactive movie, that's fine. However, I do think it is worth considering designing the basic flow of your game in a way that it is relatively break resistant. It's not going to be easy in every situation, but in some ways I feel that making a game that is fundamentally built around a relatively open-ended state, where the player is just exposed with an environment with objects in it, and then there's certain things, certain conditions under which certain other things might happen, is a much more natural way of designing a game than seeing a game as basically a linear sequence of events that the player has to go through. And Gloomwood feels like it was designed like that. It doesn't actually really matter whether I do certain things in the game or not. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters really is that I hit that final trigger zone where the end game message pops up. Now, you might wonder, what does all of that have to do with immersion? Well, you might have noticed the time when I actually stopped playing the game, when I actually stopped hyper-focusing on doing the things I was doing in it, was when the game stopped flowing. That was the thing that broke my immersion. Quite literally, because I closed the game. That's the absolute biggest immersion break you could possibly have, and it's one that you have to do with any game at one point or another. But until that point, I was completely lost. When I saw that I actually spent 3.3 hours, I was actually stunned. I didn't think it was that long. And if that isn't immersion, I don't know what is. Oh. Oh, whoa! I didn't... Holy shit, they can do that?! That is fucking great that they can just bust through doors. That did happen because I broke the window, right? This wasn't scripted, right? Or was it? Maybe it was scripted. I would hope not. I would hope that's just something they can do. I can't find it anymore, but I swear, somewhere out there was an interview with someone, maybe the lead designer or creative director or some relatively high-ranking person of the Thief reboot, Thief 4, or Thief, as I guess it was called for a while. And I swear in that interview, one of the reasons that that person gave for not having a pure jump button in the game was the fact that that would break immersion. because the player is supposed to feel like Master Thief Garrett, and a Master Thief would not randomly jump in place. Therefore, if the player were to do that, it would break their immersion, and they suddenly wouldn't feel like the Master Thief anymore. Had to try really hard not to say Master Chief there, by the way. Now, there's obviously always the problem that if a game is too challenging for a player, it might turn them off from playing it, and, you know, they just don't feel it's the kind of challenge they enjoy. They will close the game and, well, yeah, immersion broken. However, one very important aspect of playing video games and immersion in video games is that it actually feels like I am doing something. The concept the Thief reboot was using was ironically basically one of showing the player a Master Thief, but not letting the player be a Master Thief. This doesn't really help immersion at all, in my opinion. At least not for me. It feels like I'm watching a Master Thief, not being a Master Thief. If I don't have enough agency over what's going on, then how am I supposed to ever get immersed? Now, of course, movies can be immersive too, so it's not like this is an entirely one or the other kind of situation. But consistency is key, and also the mood I'm in. I mean, if I want to watch a movie, I watch a movie. If I want to play a game, I play a game. And yeah, there's definitely room for a lot of things in between that. But if you want to make something that is truly a game that makes me feel like I am a Master Thief, then you better also give me the option to screw up. Because if you don't let me go through at least a little bit of this sort of simulated hardship that someone who is an actual Master Thief would also have had to gone through to become a Master Thief, how am I supposed to feel like a Master Thief? If it doesn't feel like the things I'm doing are actually a mastery of anything, then I'm not going to feel like a master. I also think that in particular in video games, an aspect of immersion is reactivity. The pure idea that I do something and the world around me reacts is engaging. Having to figure out how the world around me works, how it will react to the different things I do, is something that will keep me glued to the game. If the game either doesn't react to what I'm doing, then why do anything at all, i.e. why play the game, or if I already know how exactly everything is going to react, why keep playing it if it seems that I've exhausted all the things? This is one of the reasons why things like the physics interactions and the much less scripted interaction in something like Gloomwood feels so nice and so immersive. Having unexpected things happen is interesting. Now imagine if I didn't have a swing weapon button, because a Master Thief would never swing their weapon randomly and even go as far as breaking a window with it, attracting guards. Are you insane? This would break your immersion so hard. Yeah, no, this was a great moment. I loved having this moment. Give me my goddamn buttons. I want to do things, and I want to do them myself. That is what immerses me in a video game. Now, of course, I might make it sound a little easier than it actually is. Making something like this work, making a game that doesn't actually break when the player does whatever they want and that can, well, not exactly account for the player doing everything. Again, I think that's sort of the wrong approach, but that doesn't have to account for everything the player can do. It's hard. It is not easy. It is hard to design that kind of thing, and it is probably at least as hard to actually program it so that it properly works and connect those two layers to make something that actually feels good to play and is fun and, you know, doesn't break. However, I think all of that just means that it is even more important to consciously think about this kind of stuff and to also note when some games are pretty good at doing it, like Gloomwood. Now, in many ways, Gloomwood is actually very, very close to just Thief. As a Thief and Dark Mod veteran, it still managed to do some neat things. Don't even want to go into the details here, because that's not the point of the video, but I really do want to congratulate the devs so far on what they've done, because they do manage to make something that I can play the way that I wanted to, and feel immersed by it, even though I'm, as some people might put it, actively trying to break the game the whole time.
Show yourself. All things